All right, so we've just talked about the general health challenges that older adults face. Now we're going to zero in on something that, let's be honest, is one of the biggest fears about getting older: cognitive decline. We're about to dig into the really critical link between what's on our plates and the health of our brains. So let's just start with this big question, right? Is dementia just a normal part of getting old? I mean, you see it happen, maybe with a grandparent or an older loved one, and you can't help but wonder, is this just what happens? Is it inevitable? And the answer, and this is so central to everything we're about to cover, is a huge, resounding no. It's common, for sure, way too common. But it is absolutely not a normal part of aging. It's a disease state, not just another birthday. And let's be really clear about what we mean by dementia. We're not talking about just forgetting where you put your keys or a name slipping your mind for a second. That's life. Dementia is a real clinical diagnosis. It means the decline is severe enough that it actually gets in the way of a person's everyday life. Things like handling money, making logical decisions, or even controlling their own emotions. Okay, so this brings us to a super important crossroads. And for you, as someone heading into the nutrition field, this is where you really have to put on your detective hat. Because not all cognitive decline is created equal. Honestly, this might be one of the most vital things you'll ever do. Your very first job is to try and figure out what's treatable and what isn't. Just picture this. An older client comes to see you, and they're confused, they're not themselves. Your ability to spot the right clues could literally be the difference between fixing the problem with a simple nutritional change and that person facing a devastating, life-altering diagnosis. The stakes just couldn't be higher. So here we have these two totally different paths. On one side, you've got things that are reversible, things we can actually fix. This could be something like a really bad B12 or thiamin deficiency. Those vitamins are essential for your nerves to work right. It could even be as simple as severe dehydration or a bunch of medications interacting badly, which we call polypharmacy. You fix the underlying problem and their thinking can bounce right back. But then you have the other path, the irreversible, progressive dementias like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. Here, we're talking about actual permanent damage to the brain structure. All right, so we've made that first cut, treatable versus progressive. But now we have to ask a much bigger, kind of scary question. Can our diet itself be one of the things that actually causes that permanent irreversible damage? Well, the research is pointing to a connection that's pretty powerful and, frankly, a little frightening. This link is so strong, in fact, that some researchers have started calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Now, this isn't an official diagnosis you'd get from a doctor. It's more of a concept. It's a way to understand the mechanism. A diet that causes insulin resistance in your body can do the exact same thing inside your brain, and the consequences for memory are just devastating. So how exactly does this happen? Well, you can think of it as a three-pronged attack. First, you get insulin resistance right in the brain's memory center, the hippocampus. That just messes up your ability to form and store memories. Second, and this is wild, the enzyme that cleans up excess insulin is also the brain's trash collector for those toxic plaques you hear about with Alzheimer's. So if it's always busy dealing with high insulin from a sugary diet, the trash, aka the plaque, just piles up. And third, there's something called glycation. High blood sugar basically makes proteins in your brain all sticky. And these sticky proteins, they cause a ton of inflammation and damage, literally killing off brain cells. And this is where it all turns into this awful downward spiral. A bad diet can help cause dementia, and then dementia itself turns around and just systematically wrecks a person's nutritional status. Let's walk through how this tragic cycle unfolds. It starts with the brain's own signals just short-circuiting. The person might literally not feel hungry anymore. Or, and you see this all the time, they'll eat a full meal and 10 minutes later have absolutely no memory of it and insist they're starving. So you get this profound and often really rapid weight loss. Next, the physical problems start to kick in. A condition called Apraxia sets in. That's where the brain knows what it wants to do, pick up that fork, but the message gets scrambled on the way to the muscles. The hand just won't cooperate. The simple act of feeding yourself becomes this huge, frustrating challenge. And then, in the late stages, you run into dysphagia, which is the medical term for difficulty swallowing. The muscles in the throat get weak, and this is incredibly dangerous. Every single bite becomes a risk for choking or for food going down the wrong pipe into the lungs, which can lead to a fatal pneumonia. And here's the really cruel paradox in all of this. Just as it's getting harder and harder for them to get calories in, their bodies are actually burning more calories than ever before. That constant agitation, the pacing, the wandering that's so common, it can burn a massive amount of energy. So they're losing weight from both ends of the equation, which just makes everything decline that much faster.
Okay, I know. After hearing all that, it can feel pretty hopeless. But it is not, I promise. While we can't change our genetics, the research is crystal clear that there are powerful things we can do to build a protective shield around our brains as we get older.
So what does that protective shield look like? Well, we can fight back with a few lifestyle buffers. First, no surprise, is a brain-healthy diet. This means cutting way back on refined carbs and focusing on anti-inflammatory omega-3s, like you get from fatty fish. Next, physical activity is crucial. Moving your body increases blood flow and nutrient delivery to the brain. And finally, being social. Staying engaged with other people actually helps build what scientists call a cognitive reserve. It's like a backup generator for your brain that can help delay the onset of symptoms. And that leaves us with one last, really essential question. I mean, it's one thing for us as future nutrition professionals to know what a brain-healthy diet is. But it's something else entirely for an older adult on a fixed income, maybe with mobility issues, to actually get that food. What are the real-world barriers that stand in the way? That's a huge piece of this puzzle, and it's exactly what we're going to dive into in our next explainer.